to use Think Alouds in our classes over the next couple of days. So at this PLC, could we take some time to share what strategy we're going to use in the Think Aloud, or what strategy we're going to model, and how it works with your particular subject area? So, does anyone want to begin?
Sure, I can start. In our business class, we've been talking a little bit about part-time workers and a little bit about the job force in general, the makeup of the market. And so one of the texts that I found lent itself really well to the use of transition words and how students can use words like first, then next, or first, second, third, to help them to navigate through the text. So I thought that that would be a strategy that would be really key for students who are, moving up in grades and texts are becoming more complex, that might help them to navigate better through the text. So that strategy is the strategy that I've chosen to model through the Think Aloud.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Anybody else want to share?
I found in history, I'm concerned that the students are just memorizing information from the textbook, and I want them to have a deeper understanding, and I want them to, while they're reading, to think really deeply about what could be going on behind the scenes at that period in time. So I decided that I would model how I think as I'm reading or the text or looking at photographs. This chart should help the students to organize their thinking as they're looking at the text. What does the text say or show? What do I already know about this topic? When I combine these two pieces of information, what inference can I make?
For me, in the visual arts program, I find that students have a hard time really evoking emotion and feeling within their characters that they're developing. And as in writing or drama or any of the arts for that matter, and apparently even here when you're inferencing, you want to get a little deeper into what's going on behind the face, behind the mind, and get that out, get that communicated. So the strategy that I'm using, I've called act it and catch it.
Oh.
So basically what you do is you become that character in that situation, and then you catch a glimpse of yourself in a mirror, which sounds crazy, but it works. Over and over again, you get a real chance to see those nuances, those subtle differences in your facial muscles or in your body to really project that emotion or feeling and communicate what's going on.
Great.
So you make some inferences along the way too.
Thank you. Oh, that's good.
What we're doing in math is using a table. So we're going to specifically model how to use a table to organize our thinking. But it kind of lends itself to what you're doing. And when they're looking at a table, then they can infer and see if they could use that table to come up with a different way or a quicker way of solving the problem. So it kind of lends itself a little bit to the same thinking you're doing in your classes as well.
I need a little more explanation. What is in the table that would help them to go to that next level?
The particular problem that we've decided to use has a growing pattern. So when we plot the information on the table, students are able to see the pattern, and hopefully through seeing the pattern, they can start applying some algebraic understanding in order to maybe come up with an equation to solve it.
So a step of it is that they're visualizing. They visualize.
When we visually see a pattern, then we're able to think about how then we can create an equation that would then model that pattern.
This text is about what is child labor, and there are lots of new words in there like debt bondage and serfdom, which I had never heard of before, even myself. So what I'm showing them basically is that if you read one part of a sentence, that can help you understand what the second part of the sentence means. So in this example, it says, all forms of slavery or practices similar to slavery, such as the sale of trafficking of children, debt bondage, and serfdom. So we're using that slavery, and we already know that part of the sentence. We already know what slavery means. So then when I see a such as, or for example, that cues me that slavery is connected to that debt bondage or the serfdom. So one kind of helps me understand the other better. So we're using a couple different examples of that same thing throughout this text.
So we just want to have some conversation about how this process of planning our Think Alouds went for you. What things supported you in that? What were your concerns, or what worked well? Can you share what went on?
Well, I think I can start speaking for Andrea and myself that when we were planning the math Think Aloud, it takes a lot more time to go through your thinking to make it visible than you assume.
Oh, so true.
And I found it sometimes difficult not to question or to model, but just to concentrate on making my thinking visible. I found that a challenge. What do you think, Andrea? Would you agree? Or
Absolutely agree. What we started to recognize is there's a lot of things that we do and don't realize that we're doing it. So to take that thinking that's in our head and to make it explicit for all those students, that was the challenge, to make sure that we're highlighting all those keywords or phrases or actions as we're teaching the students. Absolutely.
Just to add to that, I was finding that for visual arts, because it is something that's rather intrinsic, I couldn't see the strategy that really a student would need that just came naturally to me. I wanted to go to the mechanical aspect as opposed to the thinking through that happens more naturally. So really pulling out that had to come from conversation with my friend Margot, really talking through to find what strategy will they need to be able to do this task.
I noticed when Dawn and I were planning how important it was to isolate the particular strategy that we planned to focus on, that it was often my think alouds in the past have been too scattered, and it's more important to choose a strategy and model that explicitly to make it visible.
I agree with you. When problem solving in mathematics, it's not always just one strategy that you're using, but because we wanted to highlight that, we had to sort of isolate that and just develop that strategy.
Yes.
And I can see how that would be really helpful for students who struggle, feeling like they're not sure exactly how to get into the problem and how to solve the problem, or how to really dive into the photograph or whatever it is that they're looking at, that it gives them a really clear strategy that allows them access into solving the problem or whatever the task requires.
I found it probably as I found that being an adult, we've already intrinsically have these strategies, and we do 3, 4, 10 strategies at once.
Yes.
And I wasn't even aware how I was, or what strategy I was actually using at what particular time.
We were trying to always connect back to our problem-solving model. So, we just go through those steps of understanding what the problem is, and we're already processing that. But when we're really trying to highlight for that student and make sure that we're pulling all that out, it was making sure that we communicated that with them during that Think Aloud.
One of the things that I found is that your expertise works almost in two ways. In one sense, it works to your advantage, in which you know the content so well, but you have a hard time teasing out some of the strategies like we're talking about. But the other thing that I found is working with Shelley, who works primarily in language, she very naturally was able to see some of the strategies that I was employing as a reader and helped me to pull them out so that my Think Aloud could be clear to students. So I found that even working together helped me to ask myself questions so that I could make my thinking more visible to students.
That's great.